So today we passed a resolution to enter into agreement to construct a new traffic signal at Old Jacksonville and Capitol Drive. So this is something we've been looking at for several years. We actually looked at traffic signal warrant to see if it was justified, and there's existing industrial area there on the west side of Old Jacksonville that creates a lot of traffic, and there's not a whole lot of ways to get in and out of there, and so this is one of their main points of access. Also, Brookshire's Grocery Company is in the process of realigning their driveway to their distribution facility to line up with Capitol Drive. So the combination of existing and future traffic just made sense to look at putting in a traffic signal to help move traffic through there a little bit more efficiently and ultimately safely.
So when I look at it, I'm like, oh, I can literally look down the road and I see another traffic signal at the loop in Old Jacksonville, and then you look the other direction and you've got a signal at Rice Road as well. So this one's kind of sandwiched in between those. So as a commuter who doesn't really understand maybe how traffic flow works, I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of traffic signals. How is that going to affect my commute or just traffic in general?
Sure, so definitely, there's concerns about adding additional traffic signal on Old Jacksonville. A couple years ago, we actually retimed the coordination, between signals on Old Jacksonville, and so we factored this one in. The plan is how do we make sure that we're not stopping traffic, that we keep a smooth flow and kind of allow those signals to work together. And that's part of kind of our master plan of upgrading our traffic signals, making sure that we have the right equipment installed so that we can make these things work together and minimize those impacts, but also create those safe movements for people turning into or out of these roadways that have a little bit more traffic on the side streets.
Kind of going off of that, looking at this from a concern point of view, a lot of people look at the Broadway traffic and they see the traffic signals, and I know y'all have been continuously working on helping with the traffic efficiency on Broadway, but what would you say to the people who are like, oh no, Old Jacksonville is going to turn into the next Broadway and we're going to have all the same backup problems?
Sure. So definitely hear those concerns. You're working with TxDOT. TxDOT has plans to widen Old Jacksonville to provide more capacity on that roadway, but also there's a lot fewer signals on Old Jacksonville. And also you look at the configuration of the intersections, is how do we make those intersections work more efficiently? There's a lot of challenges on Broadway with how those intersections are laid out as far as options we can do with the signal timing and to move traffic. And so we're trying to plan that ahead on Old Jacksonville and make sure that we can be as efficient as possible at these intersections.
All right, let's see. What is the project costing and what is paying for it?
Sure, so ultimately the total cost of, we're looking at putting in what's called a span wire. So there will actually be timber poles, and that's because we know Old Jacksonville is going to widen. And ultimately we would come back in with steel mast arm poles with the Old Jacksonville widening that TxDOT will install. And so currently we're looking at a construction cost of a little over $300,000 estimated, but that does not include the donation of those traffic signal poles that Brookshire's Grocery Company is doing, which is a little over $125,000. So all those together, $400,000 right now. But again, we're putting in some permanent pieces, but ultimately some of this will help with construction phasing to move traffic around. And it's a partnership between the city, Brookshire's Grocery Company, and TxDOT to get this done.
And you kind of touched on it already, but how will this affect the distribution center, and why are they taking interest in this project?
Sure. So again, there's some safety concerns out there right now. Is they're trying to get large 18-wheelers in and out of that distribution facility. Maybe they're on the side of Old Jacksonville. There's highway. There's not a whole lot of queuing on site, and so this will actually get those 18-wheelers traffic off of Old Jacksonville on the side, out of the roadway, and actually that should help efficiency as well, and ultimately the safety piece of that.
And what is our timeline looking like?
Sure, so we are looking to go out to bid later in May, but ultimately kind of late summer, early fall would be our ideal timeline to start doing construction for this new traffic signal.
And what does it tell you that City Council decided to approve the resolution today?
So that shows their support, and that allows us to enter into, again, we're working within the TxDOT right-of-way, so that's why we need to enter into this agreement with TxDOT. And so there's just multiple steps that we have to go through to get it constructed, and this is one of the process, but it shows that we're moving forward and that we have the support, and ultimately we have the funding piece that will be funded through our half-cent sales tax fund that we use for capital improvement projects. Again, we mentioned the Old Jacksonville widening project that TxDOT has in place. That's several years out. And again, we're having these issues now. So that's why we're putting in this traffic signal, but also giving us the flexibility to accommodate that construction phasing several years from now and then ultimately not have to put something in that we have to rip out within a few years. So that's kind of the process that we're taking to get this project done.
While you're looking at the temporary poles, or temporary, I should
Correct.
say, but easier to
Yes.
move around. Okay, and the timeline for that expansion project, I think you said 2028. would be
Yeah,
the
so
earliest.
Old Jacksonville is currently under design, but 2028 at the earliest, I think, with construction, but there's a lot of moving parts with that, whether that's funding or utilities or right-of-way, but those are in the works, and so we know that's coming in the future.
Let's just look at this kind of like an overview, looking at Old Jacksonville and how it's used as a thoroughfare in Tyler. How would you describe the traffic flow and how often and how commonly it's used for people on a daily basis?
Yeah, so Jacksonville we classify it as a minor arterial, so it's one of our bigger roadways in Tyler. You know, it's a good north-south movement from south of Tyler, into Tyler, in and out. There's a lot of new residential and commercial and retail development, so it's definitely a growing corridor. And also we've looked at the city as a picture as a whole, is like how do we provide alternatives to Broadway, whether that's Old Jacksonville, Biloxi 756, Roans Quarter, giving people different options. And so but if we can plan ahead and do a better job of managing access and the signals and the intersections and try to keep from repeating some of the challenges that we have on Broadway today.